Joining us now to discuss further, Kurt Bardella, publisher of the Watchdog Report on Substack and co-host of the Party Lines podcast. Kurt, always good to see you. So as we sit here today, 1 million votes have already been cast in Michigan. Some recent polling, these numbers that we've gotten shows El Sayed leading Stevens by about 15 points. But the big question, as you know, is can he pull it out in the general? That's the question. This is a claim coming from the Stevens camp. She posted this to Twitter. The GOP is running ads to prop up my opponent. Not only that, Mike Rogers said it the other day, if Abdul wins, Mike would be in good shape to beat him. Folks, I'm the strongest candidate in this race. So, Kurt, who do you see as the strongest candidate for the party ultimately, and why?
Well, the strongest candidate is the one who gets the win, who gets the W. And ultimately, when we're talking about a midterm election, in which traditionally in an off-year time when there isn't a presidential election at the top of the ballot, turnout is lower. Diehards show up to vote. The side that has the most enthusiasm is usually the side that wins. And across this country, we're seeing on the generic ballot, Democrats outpacing Republicans big time at historic levels, while the president remains historically unpopular. And so when you look at the historical trends of the party in power always losing ground, when Donald Trump isn't on the ballot, Republican turnout goes down, Democrat turnout goes out, and the incredible enthusiasm that Al Sayed's getting from the progressive Democrat Party base, who is energized and motivated to vote in this election, to me, that says don't count your chickens, Mike Rogers. Don't just assume because the person's more to the left that makes it easier. The side that has the most enthusiasm is usually the side that wins elections.
Well, it does feel like his campaign has had the momentum here. Michigan, as you know, Kurt, it's historically a purple state. Many are calling this race a bellwether for how much the Democratic Party may be willing to embrace its progressive wing. So what will you be gleaning from these primary results when we get them?
Yeah, I think it's who turns out to vote. What does that voter participation look like? What is the drop off from a 2024 presidential election? How does it compare to the last time we had this type of midterm cycle in 2022 and 2018? If the votes are showing that there's actually more enthusiasm and that turnout is more robust for the Democrats than it was in 20 or 22 or 18, that's really informative. That tells you, again, that the enthusiasm gap between Democrats and Republicans is a very real problem for Republicans nationwide. And again, it's not just about, is a socialist able to get elected in a general election in more of a purple state? It's also, is the Republican Party brand, the MAGA brand, so damaged? Have the promises that were made by President Trump Republicans in 24, have they become so underwhelming that a socialist can get elected in Michigan instead of a run-of-the-mill Republican like Mike Rogers?
Right. And many say so much of that sentiment does hinge on the war, some of the financial ramifications we're feeling here now. And there's a little time on the clock there. I wanted to ask you also about an aspect of all of this Mills was reporting on, too. There are several Jewish Democrats in Michigan that told an outlet they would vote for the Republican, Mike Rogers, in this race if El Sayed is, in fact, the nominee. We know Israel has been central in this primary. How big of a risk is it for El Sayed to be alienating a traditionally Democratic voting bloc? Can he win without them?
Well, for the Democratic Party overall, we just saw a vote in the House of Representatives where something like 200 Democrats voted against funding for Israel, a huge break in precedent. And we're seeing this shift now where what looked like an outside the mainstream perspective, being against Israel funding just 2 years ago, is now becoming the mainstream position of the Democratic Party. And so on some levels, just it cuts both ways. If you're supporting Israel, that's also a negative against the Democratic Party right now. So we'll see if there are if there are meaningful differences here. If there are enough voters that would say, well, I would normally vote for a Democrat except for this, so I'm going the other way. I don't know if that demographic is large enough to sway an election. We might find that out. But ultimately, where Sayed is right now, at least on Israel, is where most of the Democratic Party across the board is.
And if you put your strategist hat on for just a moment, Republicans have been firing back fears of socialism. They're inferring communism in a lot of these conversations. Is that the best way to message, to bolster their image in the wake of many of these candidates gaining steam?
You know, I remember when Republicans, and I used to be one of them who did this, used to call Barack Obama a socialist and use that word to try to paint any Democrat anywhere. And it never worked. Ultimately, people care about what you can do for them. Republicans still don't have a vocabulary right now for what the situation is in Iran, what a win in Iran even looks like, when gas prices are going to go down, when the cost of living is going to go down, what their agenda actually is that's going to make a difference in people's backyards and people's pocketbooks and people's lives. So you can go around saying so-and-so's a socialist all they want. I think what we're about to see is that the word socialist doesn't move the needle as much as how unpopular the Trump administration and the MAGA policies have been so far.
Yeah, the pain that people are feeling is real. And if Republicans dismiss affordability as an issue, that can be a big dig in all of this. Kurt Bardella, always great to pick your brain.